Ladies and gentlemen, have you ever sat by the coast at night, listening to the waves crash, watching white foam glow under moonlight, and felt something just beyond the horizon watching you back? Tonight I want to take you to a place where the sea and sky are not the only mysteries, where the wind carries voices, and the lighthouse light doesn't always guide you home. This is the story of the lighthouse at Devil's Point, Maine, a real place, or so they say, and what happened one terrible summer in 1978. In June of '78, a young keeper named Thomas Granger was assigned to Devil's Point Lighthouse. Thomas was a man of little fear, or so he thought, a seaman who had weathered storms, a man who believed more in physics and sea spray than in ghost stories. He arrived at the dock at dusk, the sun a red smear behind slate-gray clouds. The caretaker's cottage was small, shingled, with peeling paint, windows like hollow eyes. The lighthouse stood behind it, a spiral of white stone, stained by salt, by time, by something darker Thomas could not yet name. The locals in the small village of Rockwell's Cove had warned him, keep to your path. Stay off the cliffs at dusk. But Thomas, ever logical, shut the door against gulls, against wind, against caution. The first night was quiet, apart from the cry of seabirds, the whisper of the wind through the cracks. Thomas slept in a small room at the top of the lighthouse. He woke once around midnight, thirsting. Outside, the fog was thick, swirling, like living smoke. He looked out a window, the beam of the lamp cut a pale arch through the night, but in the fog beyond, he thought he saw a pale figure, standing on an outcrop far below the cliff. He rubbed his eyes. Nothing. Determined, Thomas explored the old lighthouse records. He found file drawers, yellowed papers, previous keepers' logs, maps, letters. Something recurring, disappearances. Young girls from Rockwell's Cove, 2 or 3 at a time, missing. Bodies never found. Sometimes lifeless forms washed up, draped in seaweed. One map showed a cave beneath Devil's Point, carved into rock under the cliff. Locals called it the Devil's Mouth. The map marked it with a cross, dated 1864. Thomas decided to explore, despite warnings in the margins, do not enter after moonless night, never whistle down the cliff, they answer only what calls them. He waited for low tide, descended the cliff carefully. The cave entrance was a dark slit in stone, partially flooded. Stalactites dripped. The smell of brine mixed with old decay. Inside, he found carvings on the walls, names, some fresh, some centuries old. Faces etched in rock, mouths stretched wide, eyes forever open. And deeper, a small pool of water, black as oil. As he shone his lantern, he saw something in the pool, a hand, pale, dragging something beneath the surface. Panicked, Thomas fled. From then on, each night got worse. First, whispers, not clear words, just murmurs, like wind through pipes. Then voices calling Thomas's name. Sometimes in the lighthouse, sometimes from the cave. Once, his lantern flickered, and in that momentary dark, he saw a shape at the top of the stairs, a woman in white, dripping water, hair plastered, eyes hollow. She raised her hand. He froze, couldn't move. When the light returned, she was gone, but there were footprints, wet footprints leading toward his room. He barricaded the door with furniture, slept fully clothed, knife in hand. On the 5th night, during the full moon, Thomas heard a bell toll. No bell tower existed. It came from somewhere inside the lighthouse. He followed it, each stroke echoing. Up and up, spiral staircase, through rooms he hadn't known existed, cold stone chambers behind walls. Finally, he came to a hidden chamber behind the lamp room. There, suspended from ropes, old gear and chains. At the center, a well, stone-lined, opening down into darkness. He lowered a rope, peered in. Something moved in the blackness beneath, something long, slimy, belching a sound like breathing. The bell tolled again. From below. Thomas, in his desperation, devised a plan, He would wait until low tide and full moon, lure whatever it was to the cave, and close the entrance with dynamite he brought as part of Keeper's emergency gear. The night was wild, wind, sea spray, thunder from afar though the sky was mostly clear. Moonlight washed the cliff face, casting long, broken shadows. Thomas crept to the cave entrance, dynamite in hand, lantern low. He heard at first, a whisper, soft, insistent, "Thomas," as if underwater. He recognized the voice. It was the child's laughter he'd heard nights before, also the woman's voice, also whispers he could not categorize. All mingled. He hesitated. He dropped the dynamite near the cave mouth. A shape materialized, girls in old-fashioned clothes, soaked. Their hair stringy, their skin pale as bone. They slid from the rocks one by one, feet silent on wet stone. The woman in white came last. Her eyes empty, mouth open in an eternal scream. They formed a semicircle. The air grew colder. The tide water from the pool in the cave sloshed outward. The lantern flickered and died. Thomas was plunged into darkness. In the gloom, he heard the sound, water rushing overhead, as if under the sea. Then, the laughter. Not playful. A hollow, warping echo. He struck with the detonator. A thunderous boom. Rock, spray, a scream, but in the chaos, something didn't die. Something slithered, escaped the blast. He ran blindly, up the cliff, falling, bleeding, lungs burning. He reached the lighthouse, slammed the door, collapsed inside. The lamp room window shattered. Glass rained. A pale hand grasped his ankle. He kicked. A figure tumbled down the stairs, trailing salt water. He escaped at dawn, half blind, half crazy. Thomas was rescued by fishermen who heard screams carried on waves. When they found him, he was huddled in a corner of the lighthouse, eyes wild, hands trembling, clothes soaked, mouth muttering. "They still call me. They will always call me." He tried to describe what he saw, what touched him. His testimony was dismissed by many as insanity. The logbooks contained his entry about the cave, but nothing else. Someone had torn out the pages describing the encounter, the blast, the creatures. He left the lighthouse. The light itself was dark for months, until a new keeper was assigned. This keeper arrived at dusk, found Thomas's belongings, his boots, his notebook. But Thomas had simply vanished. No sign where he went. No suicide note. No body. Over the years, people claim the lighthouse at Devil's Point is haunted. Visitors see lights in windows when no one is there. Some say they see children's silhouettes in the mist. Others hear bell tolls at midnight. One woman, visiting in summer 2004, reported that her little daughter looked over the cliff's edge, saw something in the water, something that pushed her in. She was saved, but she still tells of pale hands underwater, reaching. So what are we to believe? That sea monsters rise from caves? That ghosts of children drowned long ago still claim the cliff? Perhaps yes. Or perhaps what lurks in places we cannot see simply feeds on our fears, and our curiosity. Thomas believed he was safe in logic. He believed in natural law. But the sea has its own laws. The cliffs have their own geometry. The light cannot always chase away darkness, especially when the darkness lives behind walls, beneath stone, in water. If you ever find yourself driving the coast of Maine at night, and you pass Devil's Point Lighthouse, watch the beam flicker. If the wind carries laughter, or a bell tolls somewhere in the distance, if you hear voices calling your name from cliffs or water, turn away. Do not follow. Because some calls are invitations. Some are traps. And once you answer, the tide may never let you go. I leave you with this thought. The ocean is honest, it is vast, it crashes, it consumes. But it also keeps secrets. And some of those secrets are alive. When you lie awake tonight, listen, for the whisper of waves, yes, but listen too for what lies beneath them. Because sometimes, just out of sight, there are creatures waiting. Waiting for moonlight to set them free. Thank you, and may your nights be calm, your shores silent, and your curiosity never lead you where the tide sleeps.